is Lake Windsor. We can put, like I said, a gate in and a pump station. So this is just a rendering of what the gates can look like. You know, you want to be prepared, so we really only need 3 gates for it to function. The 4th one gives us, so we can take one down to do maintenance. We can put blocks, we call them log blocks or stop blocks on both sides, drain the water, and then we can get in there to do maintenance on the gate, or in case, you know, the gentleman here was joking about, we get mattresses, we get trees, we get everything in our system. And if one of these gets jammed up, we can jump in and do maintenance on it and still stay totally functional. And so, and then just like here, here's where the pumps would be, so we can draw the water off of Lake Windsor, pump it into here, and it would continue draining. And this building is where we would have the electrical, the controls, and the generators to keep all of this running. And this is a lot bigger than what we're used to right now. For Thalia Creek, we're talking about 750 CFS. Let's see, one CFS equals about 450 gallons per minute is the conversion. In stormwater, we see water really quickly. Our brothers over in public utilities with water serving to your house, that they talk about GPM, which is gallons per minute. We have to talk about cubic feet per second because we get the slugs of water. And for those guys, excuse me, guys in the house that like to talk about pumps, our pumps are low pressure. So we don't need a lot of pressure to move our water, but we got to move a lot of water really quickly. In public utilities, they have their lower flows and higher pressure. They're maintaining their pressure when they're moving water and sewer through the city. They're keeping it between 40 and 60 PSI is what they're moving this through. We typically keep our water pressure at 8 to 12 PSI. We're moving water, but we don't have to have it moving that quick. So we've put this together just to try to talk about the key components. Like I said, pump stations, storage, gates and barriers. You got to have the storm drain system behind it to get the water to the storage, then the storage to go to the pumps. And the big one is regulatory. We need to make sure we're working with it. We don't want to, I don't want to put a system in and then find out, you know, I killed a lot of wildlife for that. So we want to make sure we're working with the regulatory community. So one of the new projects we've got, council approved for us 3-4 years ago, was to update our master planning. Our master planning was based in the 1990s. It really, just overall, it allowed us to know where our system were draining and where the tide came back in. But it was really based on 42-inch, 48-inch pipes. So it's our big pipe systems. Now we've got it down to 24-inch pipes. This watershed, we've also, it's a complicated, but it's a computer system, and we can continuously update it. The old one, we did it and it was done, and we just referenced it. Nowadays, we can tweak it for developments occurring. We can break out portions of it, give it to that developer. They can work with it. So it's very interactive. It's giving a lot of information. It's also is what we handed over to Dewberry for our sea level rise and using in that. So this is really good. It also will help us to better understand where are our drainage problems throughout the city, and we'll be able to prioritize them. So it's a lot of great information. We're really looking forward to it, and it really has helped us even today. And as you can see, most of the systems are complete. A lot of the area here in Elizabeth River and down here in the southern end, they've completed it, and we're trying to now assess, like I said, we're validating the models, so we're still asking if people have photos of flooding, please get them into us, because we're using those photos to help us validate the models. So jumping over to sea level rise, I got this information from about 3 or 4 different presentations. This is older stuff I think you've seen. We talk about Sewell's Point. Sewell's Point, who was it, the Corps, or I forget who really put it in, but it's been collecting about 100 to 120 years worth of data for us. It's out by Craney Island. Sewell's Point is out by Craney Island, and so it's been collecting water data. And for the 100 years, they're saying we've seen about a 0.18 inches a year rise. At Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, that was built in the 60s. We've been collecting data since then. It's showing in the Chesapeake Bay about 0.24 inches a year rise. So over the last 50 years, we've seen about a foot. VIMS, they have said in their studies to the state expect about a 1.5 feet to 3 feet rise over the next 50 years. I'll get into a little of that. So for us, we wanted to team up with BIMS. BIMS is the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. They're the scientists got into it, talked a lot with NOAA and that, and gave the projections for the state of Virginia. We're saying over the next 20 to 40 years, so between 2035 and 2055, we should anticipate to see an extra 1.5 feet of sea level rise. In 50 to 70 years, so 2065 to 2085, we should see 3 feet of rise. Doesn't mean we need to, be Chicken Little screaming the sky is falling, but it definitely means we need to plan. So this type of stuff, if we're going to build a brand new hospital, we're going to build infrastructure that's going to be here a long time, let's keep these elevations in mind. Let's make sure that we can get to the facilities. Let's make sure that we build the facilities high enough. So this is the type of stuff. As we're graduating our city projects, let's make sure we keep this in mind so we're better protected. People that live in flood areas will tell you some of the things you learn. You want to get your AC units up higher. Some of your, or some of the other things, you want to get that lifted because you get tired of every time a storm comes having to replace your AC units, having to replace your ductwork, having to replace your electrical lines underneath your house. And these are the type of things that we talk about. Now, when you talk about strategies, we want to talk about sea level rise, then we get into adaptation strategies, and then implementation. So you go slowly through it. Now, shout out, council dedicated $3 million to this. NOAA liked what we were doing, and we received a grant for $800,000 to add to our add to us. And so we're working with NOAA for this information that we're gathering. So this is, lots of different scientists and different organizations have these curves projecting how the water, where the sea level is going to be. Nobody's really locked in. We liked what Vim said, and we kind of said, okay, this is representing that 20-year range I talked about, and this is representing that other 20-year range. So by using that, that gives us, we're falling in the chart. And if sea level rise takes longer, hey, that's great. We've got extra protection, so it's a good thing. So, like we talked about, how am I doing for time, buddy?
Yeah.
You're good.
Am I good? Yes. Okay.
Well, we're about 15 over.
We're okay.
It's up.
If you guys are okay, I've got about 6 more slides, and there you go. Wrap it up. You do your sea level.
Okay.
We talk about manage retreat. So you want to manage it, or you want to retreat. You got to accommodate it, and then there's engineering protections, like I talked about the flood barriers and the pump stations. Jump into the. So we got Dewberry to take a look at what floods right now, and talking about spatial distribution and talking about cost. And this gives them an eye opener. So here's areas that flood with a 100-year storm right now. With a 1.5 feet, here are the areas, and then it talks about annualized losses, and the darker colors representing your higher cost of impacts. And so here you can see with 1.5 feet, and here you can see with 3 feet. So this financially, what impacts does that have for us? And so this next one talks about, right now baseline, annualized yearly for the 100-year impacts to us, we see a $12 million impact. It doesn't mean any year we see that, but when you analyze it, that's it. For 1.5 feet, we see 50 million. They anticipate, and with 3 feet of sea level rise, we're anticipating 270 million a year of impact. This starts helping us justify wanting to build these big barriers to protect ourselves. This starts showing us as that sea level rise gets higher, we're going to see more costs to all of us here in the city. So what are your adaptation? We talk about policy, talk about design, and talk about protection. Policy, different things that we can change with where we allow development, what type of development do we allow to occur there. Design standards, are we going to talk about, should houses have to be 2-3 feet above of sea level? Some of the design standards like that, should houses have to be built for certain other protections? And then talking about protections, not only just in communities, but talking about big barrier protections for the whole city. So when you're talking about protecting the whole city, you have to look at where does the water come. We get it from the south, we get it from the Atlantic Ocean, We get it coming in from the Chesapeake Bay. We talk about, you want to protect yourself citywide, then we'll work neighborhood, and then we'll talk at the site level. Citywide starts getting into the billions of dollars of protection. Neighborhood, protecting yourself for a 10 to 50-year storm in the hundreds of millions. And then your moderate cost, what can individuals do to protect their house? So, as we're protecting ourselves, the whole city, neighborhoods can be doing things, and then the individuals can be doing things. So, as Dr. Brian Patton presented from Dewberry to Council about a month ago, this is where we are right now. This is what he presented. This is what we're still studying and looking at. Different ways we can protect ourselves from coastal protection. You get into earthen levees, flood walls, seawalls. Here are the different types of gates you can get. Even for residential or commercial, you have your flood logs. And okay, these are rolling gates. This is like we see in Norfolk. These are the gates they close in the wall. So a lot of different ways to protect yourself. Now, using all of those, Dewberry took a look at how could we protect ourselves. You want to protect yourself on the flanks and the main way water's coming in. Now, like I showed you, you have to protect to a certain height, because if you build a barrier here, but the water gets high enough, it can come around you, coming in from the flanks for us military people. What you'll also see is we looked at different scenarios. Some of these scenarios quickly funneled out, and I think that's what this next, yeah, there you go. 4 and 6 funneled out pretty quickly, because when we did this, we realized we still had a lot of the city we weren't protecting, so we wanted to look at. Now, using these in different combinations, they looked at different combinations of these to create alternatives for protecting the city, and then they did cost scenario ratios to take a look at this. I think like the lowest cost scenario is about 1.5 billion. I think we're up to like 3.8 billion is the highest cost for these scenarios. But keep in mind, depending on where you put this protection, there are areas that are not protected. And then you'll see there were areas we were going into Norfolk to look at protecting too, because it made better sense to include Norfolk. So seeing this type of stuff makes us realize we need to think regionally. We need to talk to Norfolk. We need to talk to Chesapeake. We need to talk to North Carolina about how we can work together to not only protect us, but also protect them. We may find it's actually cheaper to work with them and protect some of them, and at the same time protect ourselves. So just giving some renderings of what some of this protection could look like for us. This is the brand new Lesnar Bridge that was completed. Here's how a gate system could be put across that so we could stop that tide from coming in. Now, one of the things you'll hear some of us talk about is not only a gate, this may have to be a lock, because the Pilot Association seeks refuge here, and they need to go in and out. And if we're doing a gate like this in anticipation of a hurricane, we may want to shut this gate 2-3 days before the storm comes. That means anything inside it can't get out. So that's where we may have to put a lock in here in the long run. That's why we have these discussions. That's why we have to look at this and decide where do we go with this. Again, here's in the southern end of the city. This is Mundy Creek Road. Mundy Creek could be lifted, and we could put a gate in here. That's what this next. So we could put a gate, and so we could stop the tide, the wind-blown tide, from coming in and flooding farmers and people's houses. So they showed in the next steps that they're working: citywide protection, site, neighborhood, maybe some hybrid alternatives, perhaps some adaptation plans, and then move forward. So over the next 3 to 4 months, you're going to see our sea level rise route coming out to talk. We, what was it, December 2017, January 2018, we were out to the community. We did about 5 different meetings at different high schools and that, try to get out to see everybody. We're going to, again, try to get out to talk the next steps and get input from people. And just again, some of our budget issues, flood control becoming critical, regulations, permitting we need to work with, more complicated projects, aging infrastructure, existing funding in stormwater not adequate. Recent weather events have revealed our vulnerability to stormwater. just showing some recent projects we just completed in the last year. Lake Smith, we improved its weir system. Bellamy Manor, this was having extreme velocity problems. We got in and did some AVM baskets to get that to flow better. And then just opening up this discussion. Like I said, it's the three of us that work together: flood control, operations, maintenance, and water quality. So we work hand in hand to do the different projects throughout the city.
Thank you very much, and we have a number of questions.
Anybody? I'll get them.
Anybody else?
Yeah, well, I was, I was also writing notes.
Just a quick one. We get a kickback from the insurance agents who sell flood insurance?
No, we don't.
Just kidding.
It's a good point to make, though. Life is a risk, and a lot of people don't realize that. I hear people all the time, they forced me to buy this flood insurance. Well, a mortgage company's taking a risk with you when they're financing your house, and so they want to make sure, because if it gets too bad, you're just going to walk away from the house, and they're stuck with it. They've got the bigger investment in the financial, so that's why they're asking for it. If you're not in the total flood zone, it's not too expensive. I think it's around $400 or $500 a year to have
What about
flooding.
4,000?
I was
If
saying
you're not in the flood.
Yeah.
If you're not in the flood zone.
If you're not in it for it, you're exactly right. People in
You're in it.
Windsor Woods
It's
have
very
told me
high.
it's very high, $5,000, and that doesn't even include content. That's just for your structure. I mean, that really starts eating into your mortgage and what you can afford, and it makes it really hard to sell your house. I totally agree.
Or retire.
When new highways are designed or existing roads are upgraded, does the stormwater engineer work with the highway engineer in the design process? We sure do. That's why we wanted to, the sea level rise and these watershed models are really helping. It helps the roadway engineers as they're doing their projects to better see where our systems, what improvements do we need to do. So yeah, we work hand in hand.
I wrote that question, and I'll give you an example. At the intersection of Lynn Haven Parkway and Princess Anne Road, right across from the Walmart shopping center there was a big berm that was built to protect when Princess Anne Road was widened, protect all the homes over in there and the elementary school, the noise and everything else. Well, since that berm was built, instead of putting a drain pipe on the home side, it was put between the berm and highway. So it keeps flooding all of those homes along there. Same thing on Rosemont Road. We've warned them, if you upgrade Rosemont Road and you're going to raise that elevation, all that's going to continue to flood all those townhouses along Rosemont, which are currently underwater. So I'm very skeptical of some of the engineers, no matter who they are, whether it's VDOT or our in-house folks, when we're doing these road projects. The reason why I asked that question.
And can you send me those addresses, because I want to get our operations people to go out so I can keep asking questions, but please.
Mark knows, he's got all.
Mark knows it? Okay, excellent. Mark Johnson is our Director of Public Works. And you're right, we are learning. We've also learned VDOT put in the sound walls, and then we have found that the water is trapped behind those sound walls. We've pushed to say if you're going to put inlets on there, you need to put an inlet at every other property line, because people like to put fences up, they like to put landscape up, and next thing they're stopping people from being able to drain across the property to that inlet. We've even talked about sound walls could be 6 inches or 8 or 12 inches high above the ground, so that water could still drain through, but that sound's not getting underneath it. So you're exactly right. We talk about, we're practicing engineers. We're not perfect. We're learning all the time. I do apologize. As these good things, we also learn that we did some bad things, and so we're trying to correct those. Use of drones to survey flood stormwater occurrences. We are, our engineering firms have used the drones to get up and take some good photos. We've also, after Matthew, Dave Hansen, our city manager, he got our photographer to go up in the police helicopter and just take photos, and those were really great for us to see what the extent of the flooding was. So you're exactly right, and really is helpful.
Craig McClure has the coolest job, man. That's why.
And I gotta say, we have set up ours for coastal and just take some pictures of the coastal. The guys that know the photography, you needed to know your stuff, because we took some photo running, they weren't that great. So yeah, give a shout out to those photographers.